Welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm your host, Molly White. Faces of Abortion is the only television program of its kind that deals with the painful truth of abortion. You will hear powerful testimonies from women and men who've experienced abortion and the devastation that it brought into their life. You will hear the truth about abortion from scientific and legal evidence that you may have never known. You will also be given practical steps that you can take to help end abortion in America. And if you're hurting from abortion, we want you to know that Jesus saves and He forgives and He heals. We also have a 1-800 helpline number that you can call and talk to a caring person on the other end who will listen to you, pray for you, and help you find an abortion recovery group in your area to help you heal from abortion.
So it just overwhelmed me. And I thought the only way to escape the pain was to take my life.
I had a fear that I wouldn't be able to have my own children.
It brings heartache. It brings hurt.
And I knew they were tearing my baby apart.
I remember the cold feeling of the room.
I remember laying there and I just said to myself that I will never forgive myself for what I'm doing.
I believe that my life was spared that night just so that I could be here right now and say abortion hurts women.
Whisper, be silent no more. Welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm your host, Molly White, and I'd like to introduce my co-host, Clayton Trotter, the General Counsel of the Justice Foundation, and Alan Parker, the President of the Justice Foundation, and our special studio guest, Muriel.
Molly, we have an unusual and informative show this week. We're going to hear from Hemda Ben-Judah, which is kind of an unusual name. She's got an unusual story. She's an American citizen who was serving in the Israeli army when she had her abortion. And we're also going to be able to hear from Muriel about how abortions impacted her life. It's going to be very powerful and emotional and informative in ways people have never seen before.
That's right, Alan. And now you're going to hear Hemda's testimony in her own words.
My name is Hemda Ben-Judah, and I'm here to tell the story of the killing of my child and the abortion and the hurt it caused me. In December of 1990, I was 18 years old. I was living in Israel, and I was serving in the Israeli army. I was not married. I had just broken up with my boyfriend, and I discovered that I was 2 months pregnant. I had just recovered from having blood clots in the lungs, and due to taking a blood thinner called Coumadin, the doctors immediately suggested abortion. They told me it would be over in a moment and they would put me to sleep so I'd remember nothing. I agreed without consulting any of my family because I was raised that life began at conception and abortion was wrong. I accepted taking their opinion and their influences to make the greatest regret of my life. I went through with the abortion and woke up and found that it wasn't over. I hadn't forgot it, that I knew that deep inside of me there was a burning and a yearning that something was missing. I knew I had killed my child in the safest place that God had intended for him, in the mother's womb. It began to hurt deep inside, but I decided that it would be easier to lie and choose that they gave me the excuse of a medical reason, so I chose to use that lie to keep from hurting and the shame and the guilt. I didn't tell my mom for a very long time because of the shame and guilt, and when I did, that's the first thing I said was it it was my choice and I had a medical reason. After 2.5 years of living on one relationship after another with many, many sexual ones, trying to cover up the hurt and pain, I moved back to the United States where I met my now husband. And soon after our relationship started, I found out I was pregnant again. I knew that my greatest fear was that I would never have children again, or that something would be wrong because God would punish me for what I had done. I knew it was a sin, and I just was worried that that's what He would do, was punish me. I was 4.5 months along, and that's when I discovered that the greatest fear was to be true to me at that time. The doctors told me that he had a hole in his heart and that they wanted to do tests and check to see if it was because of being retarded or Down syndrome. They immediately suggested abortion if the amniocentesis come back. My husband, thank God, he was ready to be a daddy, and there was no question in his mind that it didn't matter what, that he just wanted to be a dad. So we decided we wouldn't do no tests, that didn't matter to us. We were going through with the pregnancy. In December of 1993, almost 3 years to the date of the abortion, Joshua was born. The doctors immediately, even before I got to hold him, took him away from me to do tests and examine him, because they had told us the whole time he had a hole in his heart. What seemed like hours, but was only a few minutes, they come back with him and laid him in my arms, and the nurse's words were, "Oops, they made a mistake." But to me, it was like angels singing, telling me that God was in control. He was in control back when I had my abortion, and He's still in control now. I still allowed myself to hide from the abortion, not telling close people around me, and the ones that did know that it was a medical reason, even though the whole time while holding my son, I knew I was wrong. I knew I'd made that mistake, and I continued to bury it deep so that no one could see the pain that it caused. I chose not to look at commercials or anything that had to do with pro-life. I went on for 14 years this way until September of 2004, when I came to a church where in the bulletin it had a advertisement, or it had a insert about a post-abortive retreat. And my first instincts were, who would have a retreat for women who had killed their children? I just accepted Christ a few months before that and wanted so much to have His love and forgiveness, but wasn't accepting it for that one thing. I went to the retreat after much reluctancy of not wanting to find out what was deep inside, hidden, and finally went through a Bible study called Forgiven and Set Free. I believe that was God's way of showing me that He wanted me to be forgiven and set free from that bondage of sin. I had asked forgiveness when I asked Him into my heart, but the abortion was something that I held on to and did not want to forgive myself for. Since then, I have tried to move forward in the healing. It still hurts on a daily basis. It would take 14.5 years to sit here and tell you the pain of every day, because it never ceases to go away. Recently this year in 2005, I went to Israel on a pro-life conference there, and I discovered that not only is this an issue in the United States, but it is worldwide, hurting women and breaking